can't be relied on to self-diagnose.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And I think even those that know they're having problems or are going through counseling still maybe don't realize how serious things are. Unfortunately, I've dealt with it too, with teens committing suicide, and you don't ever. There's no easy solution to say this is what has to happen in order for a fatal outcome to be avoided. And, fortunately so far, everything like that, of that seriousness has been avoided in the Griffen situation. So my hope and my prayers are that he gets the help he needs first before being too concerned about what's going on with this football team and I have to be tough and get through this. He's got to be able to help himself through, the help of professionals before dealing with anything with the team.
Absolutely. And this is serious stuff, and he needs to get himself right, and football has to be, I don't even know if football's secondary at this point. It's way down the list of things he needs to deal with. And the other interesting thing is, interesting, sad, troubling, whatever the word is, we've been around Everson in locker room situations, and he's been really chipper.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going on in somebody else's head or in their life. You just don't.
Well, yeah, around us, he has been that way. He's been like normal Everson. And I think fans have a pretty good idea of what this guy is like. And with how hyper and he
funny,
can be really jovial at times, it's hard to know, is this just one of the, the up and down of hyper Everson or not hyper Everson, or is this really troubling? And I do know that there have been signs that people within the Vikings have seen that made them think, something is probably up. Things are a little more erratic. And, eventually it came to this point where you can't be around the team until you help yourself. And that's, in my opinion, that's the right move. Although, they can't force him to get in a car, and they can't, force him to be driven to a facility to seek the help. Ultimately, it's got to be enough things and enough people around him coming down and saying, please go get help. And so, I'm glad that he's taken this first step. But who knows how long it's going to be? Whether, we know it's not going to be this week. Mike Zimmer has said that. And with the very quick and short answer that it's not going to be this week makes me think it's not going to be anytime real soon. I don't know if that means it's, out for the season or not. I've inquired of the league, what are the options that the Vikings have when it comes to a football sense, and they have kind of delayed, and I think that's probably a privacy issue, and I wouldn't doubt that we hear something in this next week or two where, he goes on some sort of list, or, that the Vikings can deal with the football end of it while he deals with his own mental health issues.
If you like this show, you'll probably also like the Jeff Diamond Vikings and NFL Insider, which is on the network. Go to talknorth.com or subscribe at iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Jeff tells some great stories that really complement what we do on this show in terms of Vikings and NFL coverage. Let's get to Kirk Cousins next. I do want to say thank you to Twill in Edina Galleria, TWILLMN.com, or Twill on Instagram, my favorite clothing shop in the Twin Cities.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
Okay, so first of all, that Rams-Vikings game, we cover the Vikings. We're going to pick apart whatever's at issue with that team. But that was a spectacle. That was a blast to watch. That was so much fun. Yeah,
and, going back, watching it, the announcers the whole time were just thrilled. Mm-hmm. They're loving what Thursday Night Football has to offer. Well, guess what? Part of it, I think, is, number one, you're dealing with a lot of players that are tired, worn down, beaten down physically, and you're asking them to play 5 days after they did the last time. And with the Vikings, Mike Zimmer complained about the road trip out to the West Coast and all of that. But you also have the NFL with all of these new rules and emphasis on rules. I mean, you are going to get more offense. We've seen that. It's, the NFL is sending out releases, touting how much offense there is, how many touchdowns they're throwing, how much the scoring is up. And this is kind of what they want. I mean, they don't want defensive struggles. And you know what? For a Vikings fan, I think if they get into these shootouts, and we're talking about 1998 type seasons again where everything's super entertaining, but they're winning, it's great.
Yep.
If you're talking about, hey, the Vikings offense is better, the passing game is really looking a lot better, but we're still not good enough to win. Now all of a sudden what would have been entertaining is just disappointing and miserable and all of that. So, Kirk Cousins has been very good for this offense on several levels, but the fumbles keep happening. And I know that it's an offensive line issue too, but he's got to accept some responsibility for the things that have happened. And when he came out after the game and basically said, when he's asked about fumbles and said, I'm going to control what I can control, to me that is sort of saying, hey, the offensive line isn't blocking enough. I need more time. When I agree with that, but I also think you have to have that clock in your head. You have held on to the ball too long at times, and you have it hanging out too often when you are around traffic. So it all plays together. Everybody's got some responsibility for the fumbles that have happened. Against the Bills, I don't think there was a lot different he could have done on the one where Jerry Hughes came around Riley Reef. The ball was in close to his body as he's surveying the field. It wasn't a grotesque amount of time that he stood back there on that one. Jerry Hughes just made a really good play. Riley Reef didn't block very well. The other ones, I think he bears some responsibility for. If it's hanging out there while you're trying to scramble up the middle for yardage, that's a bit of a problem. You got to know that somebody could come from behind and punch it out. And, at the end of the Rams game, you can step up in the pocket. You can get rid of the ball quicker. You can realize that, yeah, I'm getting pressured a lot, and the clock in my head needs to speed up a little bit.
Absolutely. And part of the reason I think Kirk has been in those situations, to look at the big picture, is that they're just not running the ball very well. So He's taken a lot of dropbacks, and if you drop back 40 times and you're a good passer, you're going to have good numbers. You're probably also going to have turnovers and sacks.
Yeah. Just looking at the Pro Football Focus stats, he's been pressured 81 times already this year.
Wow.
I mean, that's an incredible amount. As a team, the Vikings have given up the 10th most sacks, which isn't great, but it's
understandable.
It's actually not as bad as I would have imagined.
Right.
But it's the number of pressures. It's which is a combination of sacks, hits, and hurries. And when you've been hurried 65 times through 4 games, wow, that's a lot. I mean, against the Bills, it was over 50% of the time that he was pressured. Against the Rams, I think it was 46 or 48% of the time. That's not good. This offensive line has to do a better job. Cousins is going to have to adapt. DiFilippo is going to have to adapt too in some of what he's calling. Or Cousins is just going to have to get rid of the ball quicker and realize, my completion percentage might go down because sometimes I just have to throw it away or put it in really tough spots that only the receiver can get it. But the sacks and the fumbles are absolutely going to kill an offense like this.
Let's get to the running game and Dalvin Cook next. We do want to welcome Bite Squad as the newest sponsor of the Talk North Podcast Network. Bite Squad delivers food from hundreds of Twin Cities restaurants. Order online at bitesquad.com or download their app and get food to your door in minutes. And for a limited time, they're offering free delivery to our listeners on their first order by using the code TALKNORTH, like one word, all caps, Talk North. Bite Squad, food for your mood, delivered. Again, do the network a favor as we try to grow and help us establish a really good relationship with a major sponsor like Bite Squad. So Dalvin Cook hasn't had much room, and he hasn't been healthy, and our big expectations have not come to fruition because of that.
Not even close. No. I mean, last year through 3 games, 288 yards on the ground. This year, just really struggling to find any room. Again, in this case, I think it's a lot to do with the offensive line. Cook's hamstring hasn't helped a lot. But, man, he's through 4 games for the Vikings, 3 games for Cook. He has had just very, very little room to run. He's averaging 2.7 yards per carry, which is terrible. But when you look at a Pro Football Reference statistic on this, or focus statistic on this, 2.57 yards after contact, which means on average, he is getting less than 0.3 of a yard beyond the line of scrimmage before he's contacted. He has the, I think it's 6th greatest number of stuffs in the NFL right now, and that's despite only playing 3 out of the 4 games. So, yeah, the hamstring has been an issue, but I think it's more the offensive line has been an issue. I mean, it hasn't really mattered if it's been Latavius Murray or Dalvin Cook or occasionally a Rock Thomas or Mike Boone run. There just hasn't been a lot of room out there, and that it's going to have to change. Cook and Murray both talked about it in the locker room today. Murray said basically the running game has been non-existent. Dalvin Cook seemed to try to put the best face he could on it and, just say the offensive line is doing its job. It's going to come around. It's early. We're only 4 games into it. I don't buy that. At this point, they've just got to be better. They've got to be bigger holes for these guys to get through.
Has Elflein helped?
I think he has helped a little bit, and I think he should help a little more as he gets more comfortable. But ultimately, it wasn't just Brett Jones at center that was hurting him. It's not just Tom Compton. It's not just it's everyone. Not every single one of those guys, I think, against the Rams, in the pass blocking game, I think each of them gave up at least 4 pressures. And then in the run blocking game, Rashad Hill hasn't been very good. A lot of those guys haven't been very good in the run blocking game, and it could have something to do with the Vikings' philosophy of wanting, in general, kind of smaller, quicker guys that can get out and pull. And then when you're facing big, powerful defensive lines, that's going to be tough to do, especially trying to run up the middle when you're getting pushed back. There's just been too many times where, whether it's Cook or Murray, that they're getting hit a yard or 2 behind the line of scrimmage, and then that alters where they're trying to run the ball, where they have to go with it, and it just kind of messes up the whole play. So I don't put a lot of blame on any one of them. I put composite blame on the entire offensive line.
I just think we should go back and give Joe Berger the NFL MVP award for last year.
It is amazing when you get it, you step away, one season later and you go, wow, that must have really been a good performance by him, because essentially the rest of the line is fairly close to the same, or, missing Nick Easton might hurt them a little bit, but it's just been a full offensive line struggle. And the other thing that I don't think gets brought up a lot, and it's hard to know how much impact, the death of Tony Sperano.
Right. New offensive coordinator and a new offensive line coach, and the latter happening in a tragic way.
Yeah. And overall as a team, I think they're really trying to figure this thing out. Like, I'm not just talking run blocking or pass protection, but what are we as a team? So far, they haven't been a good defensive team. And so if you don't have that, and you don't have a running game to try to keep things balanced, it's either you're hitting on the big plays through the passing game, or you're off the field and your defense is back on the field. So I don't know what they are yet. And, a lot of the players on offense are saying, well, it's the way that the games have gone that we haven't been able to establish a running game. Okay, to a degree, I could agree with that, but when your top back, who's supposed to be explosive, is averaging 2.7 a carry, I don't buy it anymore. He had 10 carries in the first half, against the Rams, and got 20 yards out of it.
Yeah.
So
10 carries is a lot of carries in a half.